Welcome to the Awake Space Astrology Podcast. I'm Laurie Rivers, your host, and I am here to help you with some inspiration to make your aspirations that much more easy to realize. In this episode of the Awake Space Astrology Podcast, we're talking about mystical and magical energy. And yeah, that means some manifestation too, because we have some amazing astrological transits happening over the next couple of days, leading us up to that very intense new moon eclipse happening on April 30th. But I don't see it as doom and gloom. I think we have a real opportunity to dream into that which we want to realize. And that's what this podcast is all about. So grab your favorite magic items and get ready to create some of your own bippity boppity wahoo. All right, I'll be talking about that with patron shout outs and more. And a very special segment is coming into the show, and we'll announce that in the next segment. Are you ready? All you have to do is close your eyes, take a deep breath, and make a wish. All right, are you guys ready for some magic? And before we start talking about the mystical and magical, let me backtrack and explain that magic is neither good nor bad. It's energy, right? And if you were at Coffee with Laurie this Sunday morning, then you would have heard me talking about this game I found called Genesis Noir. Yes, I am a gamer. I'm old school gamer, since Pong even. I taught my children how to play video games. That whole old people and women don't play video games is a trope that needs to, well, go the way of the dodo. But I was needing to lighten my own energy, and I found this game, and it's absolutely fantastic. If you like film noir, the artwork is done in that style. It's a very simple form of artwork, but that game is very well put together. But it's talking about the cosmos and the creation of the cosmos, and it deals with both astrophysics as well as metaphysics, which, you know, right up my alley. And so energy, and I keep telling this to clients, the universe doesn't sit and moralize on us. It doesn't. That's why the idea of crime and punishment from a metaphysical perspective isn't very accurate. Okay, so like if a planet gets destroyed because a star goes supernova and that solar system ceases to exist, it isn't that it was a bad solar system. Okay, the universe doesn't go, well, you weren't meeting my demands, I'm just going to destroy you now. Pettiness is from a human perspective. And it's one of the reasons I've always wanted to move the astrological narrative forward, and likewise metaphysical understanding. Because to be honest, like the idea that if you really think about it, that you're going to come back and be punished, or being a woman is a punishment, you know, original sin ideas, all of that makes zero sense when you go think bigger, okay? Like take your brain out into the cosmos. It makes no logical sense. It's a very human and immature human way of thinking. And it makes a lot of sense that we would have developed those beliefs, because as we were emerging in consciousness as a species, and remember, we're a species, we're an animal, okay, and animals aren't bad. That idea of dominionism that came in right before the Age of Reason, where humans were dominant and we were in charge of the planet because God said so. Making ourselves separate from the animals, when we are animals. We are part of the animal kingdom. We are we're in the primate family, so, but as our consciousness emerged, it would be really easy to be like, wow, when that rhinoceros attacked me, that really hurt. I must have angered the gods. Or when that rock slide took out my village, we weren't holding with our ceremonies, and wow, we angered that God or those elementals. And I'm not saying that deities and egregores and elementals, and there's a Malcolm shaking it off, and elementals aren't real, okay? But I am saying that we create things, okay? And so you could say all the energy that's ever existed exists, right? We moralize it into good and bad. Our belief is necessary. And I think Neil Gaiman covered this concept really well in American Gods. Okay. He's not the originator of the concept. It's a philosophical understanding, but he made it very understandable in American Gods. And then other authors have kind of riffed off the idea that if you have thought forms or deities or elementals, or it's all egregores, okay? If thoughts become things, then in order to exist, they require our belief. Not in my head, my audience. I'm giving a dude nod right now. So our belief is powerful. We truly shape our reality. And we have our individual experiences, and then we have shared understandings, shared reality, which is why culture is important, why social understandings are important. Because when you learn the cultural truths, and truths is in quotations, when you learn the social norms in quotation mark, you're then making a group understanding, a shared reality. Is that reality true? No, that reality just is. It's neither true nor false until it's time for a change. And then things start to unravel and change and evolve. So magic's like that. The whole cosmos is magic. We are magic. Magic is stuff we don't understand, right? It's energy. It's neither good nor bad. So if we bring it to frequencies, and I often use the idea of a radio, and you've got different channels you can tune into, or YouTube channels or whatever. However you access frequency with whatever devices you use. And as human beings, we do that with our emotional states, okay, with our feeling states. And that's why I bring up the moon a lot, because the moon governs day-to-day activities. We know that through observation and correlation, okay? I don't care what day of the week it is, as far as Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. All those people who attribute, the old god names to it, that's great. These are arbitrary things. The moon, to our shared understanding of mathematics, moves through the signs every 2.5 days. You could call the signs anything. The name of the signs don't matter. The fact that there's 12 sectors of the sky, that number matters. Even the name of the number could be wrong, but I digress. We'll go back. Mathematically, we know where stuff is in our shared reality of understanding. There's this orb that moves around the earth, okay? And it impacts the tides. And we have enough shared understanding of that for that to be a pretty solid part of our shared reality. How that energy impacts you as an individual is up to you. Because that energy, you can bring your own tuning fork for it. Or your own reception as that tuning fork gets struck. So if you've ever listened to a tuning fork, and I should get some percussion instruments or something to play on here so you could hear the high, the overtones, the undertones, the mid-tone, the predominant tone. If you're tuning into the frequency that is equated with frustration, we'll just use frustration. It's not bad, it just is, okay? If I hadn't been frustrated, I wouldn't have found that cool game. So frustration isn't bad, it just is. You're going to tune into more of that which frustrates you. That's magic. Okay? That's just as magical as anything else. It may not be the vibe you need to attract in other stuff that you want. it might be just the vibe you need to kick up to another station. Okay. I'm hoping I'm making sense here. So, when the moon is doing some cool stuff like it's going to do over the next 2 days in Pisces, conjuncting on the 20th, it goes in tomorrow at on the 25th of April, the moon enters Pisces. Later that day, it conjuncts Mars. So there'll be a dreamy quality to your actions. On the scale of energy, that could happen in that transit. One of the things we're looking at is a basement level energy. You could hear about overdoses. You could hear about people having weird, scary metaphysical experiences. TikTok, I'm sure, will be full of, oh my God, I saw shadow people. Shadow people aren't necessarily bad. It just depends on, again, how you're moralizing that. You might be seeing through to another dimension. You know, it doesn't mean that it's inherently bad or you're threatened, okay? The people who are maybe coming up a little bit higher in that frequency, and I'm not using the term higher as in better, it's just faster energy, just like notes. So a low note is slower energy, a high note is faster energy, a low note isn't worse than a high note. So I'm limited by the English language here. So as you move up that scale, the moon conjunct Mars might find somebody be like really inspired and they'll write a song or write their best poetry or do their best art. Or we might see some really artful TikToks, like the cosplayers may just be out and decked out. And if you guys were watching my TikTok, I used the sound of the little kid saying, you know, I want to be a marshmallow. And what would you do? I'd wobble around with joy. That's very Pisces energy. And that's what we're looking at, because that Mars energy is going to be kicked up to creativity. Some people might say, oh, dissociation. Use your imagination. Do it on purpose. When you go default, it's dissociation. When you do it on purpose, you're daydreaming. Honestly, having had a long walk with mental health because of trauma as a child, dissociation was the least of my problems, and probably the thing that saved me as a young person. And so it just depends on how it manifests. I'm not saying it's always good, because there's times it's not. But in general, use your imaginative faculties, okay? It's okay to take a break and be inspired by something instead of always grinding and putting your value into your productivity. Like, I'm only valuable when I'm productive. So there's that. And then the next day, there's a little bit of coalescence of that energy. And then on the 27th, the moon will conjunct Neptune. Okay, Venus will be conjuncting Neptune as well that day. And that's pretty remarkable energy. That's a time to really lean into the dreaming, really lean into inspiration, really lean into these things as that's going along. And when I take a break from the podcast segment, I'll go through where this manifests house by house and what that energy might look like for you depending on where Pisces is falling in your chart. Not on the podcast? No, I'm giving it to patrons. If you're not a patron, no. Just no. Not going to do it. My patrons take good care of me. So they get the special extra juicies. And if you're a patron, you can watch the replay if you missed it. So you can watch the replay on Patreon. So that I'll post the video as soon as it's done, and you can watch it. So magic is neither good nor bad. Okay, you're manifesting all the time. This is the setup for the manifestation. This is the setup and getting you ready for that eclipse on the 30th, where we're going to plant some real solid seeds for change. And on an individual level, now on a collective level, there's some big stuff coming with that. And I talked about that in the last podcast episode. But on an individual level, there's some real good opportunities to set some energy for yourself, setting those intentions. And when we talk about setting, there's a frequency to that too. It's not a like, I really hope, I wish I may, I guess maybe. Nothing comes out of that. I really wish, there's so much doubt in that. And a lot of people, especially those socialized female, have been taught to not be confident. Like it's somehow a gender thing. That, if you really want to be feminine, then you have to talk soft and be wishy-washy. That's not it. There's nothing to do with gender in that. You can speak something with confidence. Like, I want this in my life. I want to feel at ease. I want to be able to breathe easy. I want to feel confident in myself. It's okay to speak this stuff instead of being humble about it. Okay. Humility is for straight men. White, straight men. That's who humility is for. Okay? People in power. That's who it's for. People who have the dominant power. If you are not someone who has that dominance in society and the bulk of the privilege, don't worry about being humble. You don't need it. You don't need to be more humble than you already are. You are humbled on a daily freaking basis. And if you're a straight white man and you just took offense to what I said, good. You should feel uncomfortable with that. And now reflect on it. So go think about it for a minute. So humility does not need to apply when you're setting intentions, because the universe doesn't give a flying flip. The universe lines up with the energy that's there. Okay. All right. That's exactly it. Maria, you got it. Exactly. Believe in me as I believe in you. Exactly. It's an alignment. Yeah. Believe in you. And you need to believe in you. Because you are a co-creator of the universal experience. Without your physical perceptions, nothing happens. Okay? Because if someone isn't there to perceive it, is it happening? It's a non-event. You could argue that even when we look with telescopes out billions of light years away, that those things didn't exist until it was acknowledged. And that can sound like hubris, but maybe we don't exist until we're acknowledged. Who knows? I don't know. Until we acknowledge self. Woo! That's what the first house in astrology is all about. The I am. I am is an acknowledgement of individuality. And you can watch babies realize they're not part of mama as they start to individuate, right? There's an individuation phase when the baby suddenly, it starts with their hands zooming by and their eyes get big like, whoa, what was that? Right? Have you ever watched a baby's hand, look at its hand? I was like, what the hell is that? And then they go to put it in their mouth thinking it's separate, and then they chomp down, and if they've got little tooth-ins, then there's tears. And it takes a minute to recognize I am. So consciousness is an interesting thing. These are all really debatable topics. I don't have all the answers. I'm just giving you the stuff I've thought about. I mentioned, I think it was when I was playing a little bit of the game in Discord to show people, because it's just it's a very different video game. And I was like, I complained that I was stuck on an island for a really long time. I complain about it. But it was probably the best thing that could have happened to me, because all there was for me to do was question reality, question social and cultural norms, go deeper and deeper into metaphysics and my metaphysical practice, and think about the universal questions. That's what there was to keep this very busy brain going. Build websites, learn about e-commerce, learn about how to help other people message, kind of gifting my Venus and Gemini, and helping people draw out their talents, but also thinking about the bigger picture. That's what I do for fun. I would spin on my spinning wheel, making yarn, and think about the cosmos. That's what I did. And then I would study copious amounts of metaphysical literature. And so as much as it wasn't my preference, if I could have lived somewhere else and been doing something else that whole time, I would have said I would have been happy. But I think it met exactly my soul's intent for this lifetime. So that's just something to remember. Sometimes we're not in our preference, but we're gaining exactly what we need for some other time in the future. Okay. So there's that too. And this is all very relevant because Pisces kind of rules these nebulous concepts, these really bigger than our mind can conceive concepts. That's why it's the area of faith, because sometimes we just have to say, I don't have the answers. I'm just going to go on faith. And that's what this energy is about. And so what did I tell you about 2022? You want to get through this year, you got to have some faith. It's so easy to get stuck in a rut and to just look at all the crap that's going on and look at the pain and suffering in the world, and you'll get stuck right in it. That lower manifestation of the Pisces energy, the need to martyr oneself, or the suffering side of it because of the deep rooted empathy. And we all have areas of that in our chart wherever Pisces resides. And again, I'll talk about this in a little bit, but with my patrons here, and it's also important to remember that we can tune in. And that's why, like in the Pisces rising forecast for the Aquarius moon transit, I said, hey, envision these people who are solution thinkers, the inventors, the scientists, the helpers, the doctors, the lawyers. Help them understand that they're loved. Send them some love. You don't have to write them a letter. Just imagine little love bubbles floating out to these people who are solution thinkers, and that their voices can be magnified, that they can be heard, that innovation can be made. Maybe even send it to some world leaders, that aren't maybe making the right decisions, but send them some energy, not to make them feel better, but to maybe help, not to push them either, but maybe be like, hey, maybe you could open up your ears and hear this and do the right thing. And honestly, I wouldn't even look at politicians with some of this. I would look at like the CEOs, because they have more power than most of the government leaders right now. So like, listen, you've got the power to do something. Somebody has something really important. There's something waiting for you. And you can contribute in this big shared reality. You might not ever hear about it. You might not get the gratification of results, but it is a beautiful practice, and it kind of takes the edge off some of the uckier feelings. Alrighty. So, that's what's that. I'm gonna take a break here, and I'm gonna talk with the patrons about where this energy is, what it's gonna look like through the 12 houses. If you're a patron and you're listening to this, just remember you can watch the replay of the behind the scenes to get the 411. It's time for ModTawk. All right, here's the extra special something. It's called ModTawk. That's right, ModTawk. This is me and Rita, Mackenzie, and Molly for the very first try at a new segment called ModTawk. This is where we go down rabbit holes, both metaphysical and astrological, because we do this all the time anyway, and we figured we might as well record it. So we decided, I asked the ladies what they wanted to talk about, and they decided manifestation, since I'll be teaching about it on Saturday, April 30th. So There's some great stories, and if you want the blooper reel, you'll have to join Patreon.
My personal story about, energy flows where attention goes is that I remember being 17 and I was so frustrated because I just separated from, my first love and stuff like that. And I was like, why everyone is kissing around me? Why everyone is together? How can you people do this?
Right.
I think it will be like one of the common scenarios that people experience, realizing this energy, because it's so funny.
It is in retrospect. When you're going through it, it's hard because you'll just be like, I'm all alone and everybody else is coupled. They're all holding hands. And you're in a much better space when you suddenly can see people holding hands or kissing. You're like, oh, that's nice.
Right. And suddenly you're one of them too.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Goes along right with it. Yeah. So kind of our perception shapes our reality. And it could be other people who are completely contented being single don't ever notice those things. Like it could be happening around them, but they're looking at something else. And that's a lot of our reality is shaped by that. So when I was a poor student in college, in university days, I noticed like after payday, I felt really, really rich. And something that costs £5, I didn't think about it, But by the end of the month, when I was counting change, I would feel rich if I found £5 worth of change, And I was like, wow, it's really relative, Yeah. And so when I had to study relativity, I used that as a metaphor for myself because I was having trouble with the kind of the astrophysics side of it because I had not studied that stuff. And I was kind of dumped in at the deep end. I was like, yeah, but it's like change. It's like the money in your bank. There's times where $100 seems like everything. And there's a time where $100 isn't anything. You'll feel like,
okay,
how you doing?
My cats are finally, I can calm down. They're eating, so.
Yay.
Food solves the problem.
Yes.
So you saw this TikTok, Mackenzie.
Yes.
And this guy was saying energy flows where attention goes. And what was your experience with that?
His example that he used was to picture like a blue feather in your mind and just like picture what it would feel like to find this blue feather and then to release it and let it go. And so I didn't think about it. And then the next day, I was just like in my apartment and I noticed this blue feather that was one of my cat's toys. But like, it was just like crazy that I've seen this blue feather a million times, but it's that whole, when you see it, it just like, I don't know, mind blowing a little bit.
It opened your awareness. Yeah. Yeah. You could see things you don't normally see too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it happened like really quick. So
it can. Absolutely. Things can change in an instant in a good way as much as anything else.
Yep. I actually have like a little story to share about more like less positive aspect of this. I don't know if like you want me to elaborate or not. Just let me know.
I think it's good, and I'll qualify from the story just to help people understand how powerful their minds are, and just also to give a caveat that it's not punishment. And it's not like a blame the victim thing, but we're very powerful in how we shape our reality. So feel free to tell the story.
Well, it was when I came to Russia in 2019, and my friend was constantly like being in a worry that someone is gonna, follow her, this type of thing. And I was not even in that space of awareness, you know, nothing like that ever happened to me and stuff like that. And bet you, when I got into that space, what we shared with her, we noticed the guy following us.
Right.
So it was crazy because like, and then when I detached from that space, it suddenly changed. It was like switching timelines. It was like crazy, you know? And when I was just thinking about it the other day, I was like, wow, you know, it's just insane because she has really powerful energy to herself, like my friend. And we didn't see each other for a while, and we're childhood friends, you know, so there is a certain bond that happens when we see each other. So that was quite powerful. And I think, you know, when I said to her, you know, like, don't worry about it. I don't think that this guy is literally, you know, stalking us. And she just paused for a minute and she was like, oh, yeah, you're right. I'm too worried about it. And that's when it switched.
There you go. And so that's a really great example about where we're tuning, right? When I talked about that a little bit earlier, I talked about tuning to the frequencies, whether it's a radio or the YouTube channel or whatever. You were close, so you could tune to her easily, and then you had to tune back to your channel. And she chose to follow that tuning. And so if we do that deliberately, and guess what? We're not going to do it deliberately all the time. So, you know, shit happens.
Yeah.
Sometimes astrologers don't check the charts before they schedule things.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It works out. But that's why I say we're manifesting every moment of the day. We're always manifesting. We're always shaping our reality. Now, do you want to do it consciously and deliberately and have stuff happen in amazing and surprising ways? Absolutely. In good ways? Absolutely. But it ain't the crystal and it ain't the incense. It's your mind. Oh, no, it's not very much money. There's other times where it's like, oh, that's a shitload of money. And it's relative. Yeah.
I think the video that you shared, was it the Living by Luna tier about like choosing a color and going for a walk or something similar to that. I've been playing with that quite a bit. And I was driving and I was like, okay, I'm gonna pick a really random color. Let's see what happens. So I picked teal and I got to the stoplight and the fucking bus stop was teal. I was like, you're funny. Okay.
Right. And what are the odds of that?
Right.
You know, it's if you can do it with those seeming, and the reason why it's also easier to do it with feathers or colors or numbers, is there's not a lot writing on that. You're not resistant to it. You don't have the doubt, and resistance isn't like a blame thing, right? It's just, it's kind of like if you're swimming, there's resistance, right? There's certain strokes that help you move faster and certain ones that don't because of resistance, right? And so if we have a lot of doubt or, you know, if we're in a negative environment and people, you know, we're listening to the outside noise, that's why I say bring your energy inside, you know, so. Now I'm hungry.
Food and video games sounds like a good Sunday night.
Right?
Yeah,
Maybe I'll order pizza and just be a stereotypical gamer.
Do it.
Do it, yes.
Do it, Laurie. I was actually thinking of you yesterday when I was at this Vietnamese place because I remembered how you told us the story about you living in another neighborhood that you moved from. And I was like, oh my God, you know, that's so weird. I'm waiting for my pho soup and I'm like, Laurie, what are you doing inside my
Love pho. There was so much good stuff on this ModTalk episode that next podcast episode, ModTalk will feature the rest of this conversation where we talked about north nodes and nodal returns. So stay tuned for ModTalk here on the Awake Space Podcast. All right, it's time for our patron shout out. Without patrons, there is no Awake Space Astrology Podcast. I'm Laurie Rivers, and I absolutely appreciate every single one of you more than you can possibly imagine. Without you, there is no me. So it is always my pleasure to share and bring what I've learned over the years to the table. And right now, I am going to read through the list of patrons, and I hope you can still see me when I switch and toggle my screens in the chat. If you can't, let me know, but I don't think you lose me on the screen when I'm checking things. So let's see, maybe you do, but I don't think you do, right? So funny. You're like, and it's so funny for those younger people who are like, I'll always check my transits. No, you won't. You won't. You're going to get busy with everything else, and you won't always check your transits. Even if you're a Capricorn, you're not going to. Not even if you're a Virgo, you're not going to. You will forget. Because you will get busy. Because life happens. Just saying. All right. All right. We're looking up the patrons here. I'm talking to my patrons. I was going to have the moderators meet me on the live stream, and Saturn is conjunct the moon. That's what I'm referring to. Did I figure that one out ahead of time? No. So we've got some new patrons, do you think? We've got Jerry, Jessica, Crystal, and David, Jennifer, Kristen, Audrey, Kathy, Misty, Kelly, Becky, Kurt, Darcy, Liz, Aaron, Kathleen, Tyler, Jody, Kimberlyn, Nikki, Dina, Colette, Casey, Madison, and Vanessa not found. Thank you so much to you guys. I appreciate you. So now we're going to talk about manifestation, and we've got the Manifestation 101 workshop. So I've been talking about this in the transit class as well that we have on Saturdays. It's a 10-week class for beginners being introduced to astrological transits. So we use our Mercury to get clear, okay? Our thoughts. We have to be clear, because if you're kind of sort of ambivalent, you're going to get, your results are going to be kind of sort of ambivalent. So when people say, I tried manifesting and it doesn't work, well, it probably worked just fine because the energy is going to match. So if you were kind of sort of not sure, if you didn't really believe it was going to happen, if you were doubting your process, if you're like, oh no, I bought this candle at the dollar store, therefore my intention is less than, well, right there, you just put energy into what wasn't going to happen. Okay. If you're more focused on what's wrong than what you want to create, you're going to get more of where your attention is. Okay, it's not a blame thing. It's just physics. Okay, just like an object in motion stays in motion, right? From the law of inertia. Okay, so and take that principle and think about, okay, if my focus is on shitty things, guess what I'm going to see more of? Do a thought experiment with me, okay? So think about red balloons or yellow feathers or reading glasses, cool reading glasses. It could be anything. It could be pink highlights. It could be yellow moons, okay? It could be people drinking frappuccinos. You could pick any single subject, and for the next day, like throughout tomorrow, to prove to yourself that where you put your attention, energy flows. So like I learned this young, and I didn't get a good grip on it, but I learned it when I was a young person, and I had a miscarriage, and I really wanted to be a mama. And I had a I had a miscarriage, and I really, really, really wanted a baby. And I was so devastated. It was early on, but I'm one of those people that can feel they're pregnant, like before the pregnancy test could even be a thing. Okay. And everybody and their mother was pregnant around me that whole time. Like after I lost the baby, everybody got pregnant. And the more I felt the loss of not having my baby and being, down on myself, the more everybody else got pregnant. And it was hard because my attention was on that. Did everybody literally get pregnant? No. But was I tuned to seeing every single pregnant human being that was around? Yes. And so it was really hard. And I went to my doctor. I got all my hormones checked out because I was having a really hard time getting pregnant. It wasn't for lack of trying. Wink, wink. It is the best part. And my doctor did the whole hormone screen. She's like, there's nothing wrong with you. You do ovulate. Looks like you're ovulating at this time in your cycle, not this time. But other than that, everything is perfect. You are healthy. You are fixated on this, and you're repelling it away. Now, she wasn't talking love attraction. She was just like, you're so stressed out about it, you can't conceive. Go do something else. She's like, go do anything. Get a job that travels. Get anything that keeps you busy. And I swear within 3 months you'll be pregnant. She was right. She was an older lady. She was right because there was no physical reasons, right? There were no fertility issues. Well, damn, the minute I got busy, the minute I was traveling. In fact, I flew to Paris, and if I would have known I was pregnant, I would have been like 2 days pregnant. And I was feeling kind of weird, but I had to travel to Paris for meetings from the Middle East. And as I was being driven up the mountain to Evian, okay, because I was visiting with Evian, the water, for my job, I didn't feel well. I was in the front seat, and the guy driving me up, I asked, hey, do you mind if I roll the window down? I'm feeling a little queasy. And we were speaking French, and he said, you don't mind if I'm presumptuous, but you're not expecting, are you? And I was like, well, I've been trying, but I wouldn't have traveled if I thought I was pregnant. And he goes, well, I'm a father of 5, and you have a certain glow. And all of a sudden it started making sense. I had never been car sick in the front of a car before. I was having a little hard time believing this, and that was when I was pregnant with my daughter. And it took what my OBGYN said, which put my attention somewhere else, because I was so focused on making it happen that I was literally kind of repelling it away, because there was almost this belief like it couldn't happen. I was trying hard, but it just was like it was mixed, the guilt and the pain and all of that was repelling the very thing I wanted most. And so that can happen with a lot of different things. It's like been happening with the mystery school. I was getting too serious about it. And that's why at Coffee with Laurie, I told the story today about last night realizing, you know what, I need to lighten up to make this happen. There's something I'm dissatisfied with. I'm not sure what it is. There's something I'm not happy with. And I'm going to have to do something differently. And so I decided to play a video game. And I was going to play a game I already played. I was going to play Fallout. And I was like, I don't want to deal with a post-apocalyptic world right now. I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to add energy to that reality. I just want to have some fun and lighten up. And so that's what I did. And I found this game called Genesis Noir, which is really, really cool. And it covers a lot of the concepts that I've encoded into a lot of the mystery school stuff, and it made me laugh with delight. So it was super fun. Super fun. So there is that. Manifestation is something we're doing all the time. It means to shape with our hands. Okay, mani means hand. Manifest means to make with one's hands, a person's hands. Okay, so we shape things with our minds and our thoughts and we bring it into reality. You can't make anything without first having a thought about it, whether you're cooking dinner or you're making crafts or you're building a building, like a home or a car or the microphone I'm speaking into for the podcast. All of that was an idea first, and you have to bring it together to make it happen. So there's that. We're going to teach this in depth on April 30th at 5 p.m. At the manifestation class. So that's going to be super, super, super important. So because this energy is building as we have the moon, when Venus is conjunct Neptune on the 27th, the moon will be conjunct Jupiter. Are you kidding? This is amazing. For those of you who are having second and fifth house transits, go buy freaking lottery tickets. Do it. You'll thank me later. The energy on the 29th, Venus will be conjunct Jupiter. That's another great one. Okay. And the moon will be at the very tail end of Aries, if not Taurus. So tail end of Aries, early Taurus. And it may be when the moon is squaring off with Pluto that it's breaking open some structures that are in the way. On an individual level, breaking open those structures means your cultural and social beliefs that hold you back. What kind of woman thinks this? All that humility you keep operating off of that isn't necessary unless you're a straight white man of a certain age. Tucker Carlson. He can roast his testicles all he wants. Sorry, I had to make fun of that. This energy is remarkable. It opens us up. It opens us up in big ways. That crash, by the way, podcast listeners, was my reading glasses. I'm talking to two audiences at the same time. It's very disconcerting. I'm talking to my live audience and remembering I'm recording like, hey, don't just throw things. Crash, boom, bam. But this energy this week is really remarkable energy. And you can surf it to create some great things. But you've got to feel into it, and it has to feel good. Find the whimsy. Notice that when I've been making TikToks about this, 9 times out of 10, they're whimsical. There's a little silliness to them. There's some awe and wonder involved. That's that lightness that helps you tune into those frequencies that make the magic you're thinking you want to have happen versus the heavy do or die energy. I must save the world. Humanity must awaken. We have no time to lose. That big, strong, I will martyr myself to the cause. It fixes nothing. It fixes nothing, and we can still be aware that there's a lot of problems. But if we're going to get to the solution-oriented thinking, like how do we adapt? How do we deal with these changes that are on hand? How do I still have a loving and rich and fulfilling life in the midst of a shitstorm? Okay, you still can, and it's okay. It's okay to be happy in the middle of massive systemic change. In fact, if more of us aren't happy, we can't shift that energy over. So it is the most spiritual thing you could do is find peace and contentment and reasonable satisfaction on the inside. That's some of the best you can do. Okay. Yeah. So there's that. So we're going to be talking about that. Now, Mystery School, I mentioned, had to make some changes. There was some logistical stuff that wasn't working. I was going to try to run these things through Patreon. Patreon to this other system, it's just not going to work. So if you're in Living by Luna or Cosmic Surfers, hopefully my goal, my intention is by the end of this week, before your Patreon subscription renews, I will have another space for you to go, and you will get a very special message, and that will move you over there. Okay. So, and you'll still get horoscopes. Okay. That's the easy part, is I write horoscopes on separate documents anyway, so I just copy and paste that into Patreon, so I can put those into this other place as well and make sure they go out as emails. So it's fine. So you'll still get horoscopes, and we can put horoscopes into the mystery school too. We can make it like the horoscope bulletin board. Okay, so because there's going to be its own Patreon, its own Discord there. So just for logistics, it was just going to be too much admin trying to correlate who's where and how. And someday we will have like a mystery school website that's really cool. But for right now, getting everything uploaded, getting you guys the content for reference for the libraries, as well as the processes, and getting some of that schedule going. It's just getting that moving there. But alrighty then, as always, it's my pleasure to share with you information I have learned through experience, through study, through making mistakes, from from beating myself up and learning to be more gentle on myself and more loving and kind to myself. I am very dedicated to being human and having a human experience. I believe that's exactly what we're here for. And so you're just perfect the way you are. Just understand that. If I had one message, it would be you are exactly who you designed yourself to be for this lifetime. Your flaws are sacred. Okay, your flaws are sacred. Just understand that. If we were perfect, there'd be nothing else we could do but atrophy and entropy. And so thank you for your service to the universe, for causing evolution to happen, because we're all part of that together as slices, divine slices of creation, masquerading as human beings. All right, my friends, I will see you next time on the Awake Space Astrology Podcast. God knows what the topic will be. It's always up in the air until right before I do it. All right, this is Laurie. Take care.